I'm going to be giving you a ton of information about these plants. And so you don't need to worry about taking notes. I want you just to sit back and relax and enjoy it, because I have a book for you at the end that's got all the information, and it's got recipes and remedies for the plants too. So I just want you to relax and enjoy yourself for this. Nancy's here, Paul's here, Anne's here. I know I'm a note taker too. I want to be sure I get everything, but you don't have to unless you want to. Jean's here. West Virginia, yay! Jean's on one of our team members. She's actually heads up the case studies in the aromatherapy course that we have, the certification course, and she's our community manager. She's amazing. So she's here to help out. Joe, my husband, is here to help out as well. Cheryl's here, Sharon's here, Melanie's here, Long Island, New York. Wow. Danny's here, and another Wyoming person, Mill from Piedmont. Awesome. I love hearing where all of you guys are from. Sammy from STL. Is that St. Louis, maybe? Beverly from PNW. I do know what that is, Pacific Northwest. And we have Oklahoma in the house, and New York and Oregon. We're from everywhere, and this is great. Florida's here, Pittsburgh, Texas. Wow, Maureen is over in Spain. We've got Oklahoma, North Carolina, New England, or Nebraska, Auburn, Indiana, Jill from Utah. Hi, Jill. I've got a lot of family in Utah. A lot of family everywhere, actually, at this point. And also some over in Washington. Shannon in Oregon. We've got Florida people too. Saskatchewan, Canada. We've got West Virginia. I'm so glad to see you all here today. So people are still coming into the room, but I'm going to go ahead and get going. But, and I'm going to introduce myself during this slide. But if you don't know me, I'll just do a quick brief one here. I'm Heidi Villegas, and I'm the founder and owner of Healing Harvest Homestead. And that's an herbalism site that I started. It's actually started off being a homestead site. But then I kept getting messages from people because my training's in herbalism and now aromatherapy as well. Lots of years and years and years of it. And I was getting notes from people saying, you know what, I can learn about chickens and gardening from other people. I want to learn about herbs from you. So I went ahead and just basically just talked about herbs and essential oils. And people are so hungry for this information right now. And we'll talk a little bit about that and why that is too. But definitely it's time to start learning herbalism. Okay, so we're a couple minutes after the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the slide deck. Before I do, I woke up this morning with some little allergy things going on. So I'm going to take some tincture. This is my, sorry. That helps my nose. It helps with congestion, and I just love that tincture. It's amazing. So take that really fast. So there you go. You got to see how to take a tincture. Super easy, right? Jane's from Missouri. Gail's from Rochester, New York. Barbara says, will we get a recording of this? Yes, you will get a replay of this as well. So as soon as this video and webinar training processes it, because we're live, and then basically you're going to go ahead and get an email shortly after with the replay link. And then you have a few days to watch it and think about things again. It'll be up for a couple days afterwards. Yeah, you're welcome, Barbara. Oh my goodness, Andrea's from Denmark. Awesome. We have a lot of students from Norway, actually, Norwegian students. Linda from Missouri. We actually have students from all over the world. But anyway, yes, so Healing Harvest Homestead is my website, and I've got a YouTube channel, and I've got literally, there's either really close to or over 1,000 articles and videos between the two platforms that are totally free. And so it's my mission. I'm going to share my mission with you right now. My mission is to get an herbalist into every extended family as soon as possible, because it's necessary for our health and wellness and our well-being in this world right now. And so I just wanted to share that as well. And it's super important to me. And you'll learn why in just a few moments. Joanne's from Wisconsin. Claudia's from the UK. Good. We've got a Texan, Diane. Glad you're here. All righty. I am going to go ahead and start the slideshow. Okay. And I'm going to start the presentation. So you'll see me down in the corner. I will be in the chat as well. And you can ask questions if you want to. There's a lot of people here, so I probably won't catch the questions. So we'll talk about how to ask a question in just a moment. But let me get the chat back up here. Can you guys see the slide okay? Does that look okay on your end? I'll wait for some yeses and then we'll move on. Elisa says, I am the herbalist for my immediate and extended family. Elisa, bless you. You are awesome. So glad. You know, and the thing is, we'll talk about herbalism in terms of, oh, good. Thanks, you guys. In terms of, you know, certification and all that. The fact of the matter is that herbalism in the United States, because other countries are different, but herbalism is not a recognized medical modality. And so that's in our country. So that's something just to know. Therefore, there's no such thing really as a certified herbalist or a master herbalist or anything like that. And I like to be really transparent with people about that. But what happens is now insurance companies are getting wise to the fact that people are practicing herbalism and they want to know that you've got education. So I had a lot of students say, hey, can I please get a certificate of some kind so that I can prove that I studied this many hours? And I'm like, well, you know, sure, if you need it, I'll go get that for you. And so then I created a certification course that's pretty beefy, a lot of plant stuff. Yes, M says it's not recognized because it works. Exactly. Takes money away from the big powers that be, right? Okay, so this training is, we're going to be talking about, I've got samples of all these herbs over here. 5 easy to find best herbs for your home apothecary. I'm super excited to share these with you and everything that they can do. They're incredible. And I just want to say again, welcome. Try to reduce distractions if you can, but if you can't, I understand because we have life going on. There will be a replay if you miss any part of this. You do not have to take notes because at the end, you're going to get a link for this 29-page guide. It's got all the information from this training, plus growing tips for the herbs, plus recipes and remedies. So I want you to walk away from this with value, and I want you to walk away from this with some tools so that you can actually get started on your home apothecary and get started with some plants that are not crazy, like wild plants. Like these are super legitimate medicinal plants that you'll be familiar with. All right, so if you have a question, I want you to just ask at any time. But if you ask in the chat, I probably won't see it, okay? So if you could, there's a Q&A section. If you look at the chat box up at the top, it says right next to where it says chat, it says Q&A only. Go ahead and click on that, and then you can ask a question. That's where I'm going to be answering questions at the end. And I will try to answer as many as I can. I'm going to give a little caveat with that. So we just talked about how herbalism is not technically, quote unquote, legal in our country. So I cannot answer medical questions because I'm not a medical doctor. I am an herbalist and I'm a professional level aromatherapist. I have a small clinical practice. I keep it small because I love teaching, and teaching is mostly what I do. But I do see occasional clients, and I definitely work with our family and friends and community. So that's what I do. But I try to spread the word about this wonderful, wonderful gift of the medicinal plants that God gave to us to use. And yes, the knowledge has been taken from us. It's been literally stolen from us. There's a whole history to that we won't get into. But anyway, I just sort of introduced myself a moment ago, but here I am. This was 3 years ago, I think, because my little baby granddaughter there is Malia. She is now in kindergarten. So she was out there in the chamomile patch with me that day, and we were picking chamomile. But I am a community herbalist and a clinical herbalist, and I'm a professional level aromatherapist at the level 2, which is a lot of hours. I'm a gardener and a plant lover. I'm a fur baby mama, and we homestead. It's a small homestead. It's not like we don't have a dairy cow or anything like that. Homesteading is different for everybody. We have a lot of chickens. I'm a teacher and a writer. And I'm a grandma to hopefully some budding herbalists. And so that's the nice thing about learning herbalism is you get to leave a legacy to your kids and your grandkids, even if they don't believe what you're doing is works or anything. You know what? One day they will. I promise you. So maybe I'm going to ask you, does this sound like you? Have you tried to get into herbalism and gotten a little discouraged? If any of these things I ask resonate with you, just go ahead and put a yes in the chat. Maybe you know that you want to be and you should be giving your family the safest and the best natural remedies because, natural, I'm just going to say this out. Maybe, hopefully you just hear me, but natural is better. Herbs support the body's healing process. Pills cover things up. And I'm going to tell you a story in a few minutes about a little boy who almost died because of that. One of my old students, I was a school teacher for 30 plus years. But anyway, maybe you're worried using herbs that you might mess up and poison somebody. Is anybody in that camp? I know, because I was okay using the herbs for myself, but man, when it came to my granddaughter, should I give, when my older ones were little, I'm like, should I give her this? Should I not? So I really went around and round with that. I don't anymore, by the way. Or maybe you're a person who you want independence from big pharma. You're sick and tired of totally being dependent on the over-the-counter drugs or the prescription drugs to make you even feel a little bit better. And then you have side effects. All right, is anybody there? And that was me, I'll tell you. And then maybe you just want more control and empowerment over your family's health choices. You want to be able to make better decisions about things to do. And finally, are you a person who just wants to save a ton of money? Okay, because I am floored by the prices of over-the-counter drugs. One of my team members, we did a series of comparison videos on YouTube live the last few days. So you can catch those over on YouTube if you want to. But we compared an over-the-counter drug with an herbal substitute or alternative, and we did a cost analysis, and it's crazy. So it is absolutely just crazy the money that you can save. Okay, and here's my own epiphany. All right, this is where I got to where I got. So when I grew up as a little girl, I'm not going to read this to you. I'll just share with you quickly how I got to where I got here as an herbalist. But I was, as a young girl, I had really bad allergies. And my mother took me to an allergy doctor, and they discovered that I was allergic to all these things. And so what she did is she gave me a little red pill every single day. I still remember the name of it. It was called Polaramine. And I think I was 8 or 9 years old when I had to start taking those. And then in the summertime, I had to go get a shot, and every 2 weeks. And it blew up my arm. And I just, it made the allergies a little bit better. I still had a stuffy nose and everything, but I didn't feel really great. But I was a little girl, and, we do what our parents say. And my parents didn't know, nobody knew about medicinal herbs. And I grew up in the 60s. So that was, a long time ago, 60 years ago, actually. And so I grew up using drugs. over the counter and prescription drugs. And as I got a little bit older, I ended up with skin problems and I ended up with rosacea. The doctors put me on loads and loads of antibiotics over the years. And it was crazy. Well, I didn't have a clue that all of those antibiotics that I was taking were damaging my liver. On top of that, I had kind of gotten a little bit addicted to Tylenol PM to help me go to sleep at night. So I was taking a lot of acetaminophen. And then I had some back problems and some other things go on. Finally, when I was in my, I think I was about 40-ish, I went to a dermatologist, a different one. And he actually sat down and talked to me. This was the first doctor in all of those decades who actually sat down and said, hey, tell me what you've been taking. Tell me what you've tried so far. And when I told him all these things, he said, Heidi, he said, there's no way that your liver isn't shot. He said, your liver cannot be okay. And he said, I'm going to guess that it's probably one of the root causes of your skin issues as well. And I was floored. I mean, we need our livers. We need our livers to live. And so I said, well, what can I do? And he said, well, I have a natural laser treatment or light treat. It was a light treatment that he could do. But he says, your insurance probably won't cover it. I'll try. And no, the school district insurance would not cover it. But I went ahead. I was a single mom at that time. I dug into my pocketbook, got my credit card out because I was desperate, and paid. At that time, it was $1,500 for this light treatment, and then I made the payments. But I'm so glad I did because it cleared up my skin. And so that was a decision that I made, money-wise, that really it woke me up. Okay, it woke me up. I realized there were other methods out there besides drugs that could work. And then a couple years later, I came across she was really short time later. I think God put these things in my path, but I came across an herb book, and I'm like, herbs? What's this? And I made my own tincture, and it worked. And then I got to the point after studying herbalism on my own for a long time. Took me forever because back in those days, there was no internet. There was not very much information. Now there's too much information. But anyway, I ended up only taking my herbal medicines after a while. And so at this point in my life, we've been off of, my husband and I, no prescription, no over-the-counter drugs for pretty close to, it's been 12 years now. So it's craziness. But you guys, these days, this is just a little bit of the things I don't struggle with anymore at all. I don't struggle with rosacea. You saw my skin. It's crazy. No more of that. That's emotionally devastating, by the way, that form of acne, plus it's painful. And I've dealt with it naturally. No more L4, L5 disc problems in my back. I had a sports injury, and that doctor put me on oxycodone and Xanax. And I was teaching sixth grade math at that time, and I couldn't function. When you're standing in front of 45 sixth graders, and yes, one of my classes, I had 45 kids in Las Vegas, you have to be able to function or they're going to run the show. So I couldn't take those drugs, thankfully, because that was back in the day when everybody was getting addicted to the oxycodone. But I don't struggle. I solved my back problems, basically. No more yeast infections, no more urinary tract infections. Thankfully, no more side effects. I can go to sleep now, and if I need help, I take my herbs or I smell some essential oils. I don't have the grogginess in the morning. I don't have an upset stomach all the time. No more gas and bloating and anxiety. You guys, anxiety, I've learned, I have a certification in aromapsychology at this point from Dr. Tisserand, and I've learned anxiety is a byproduct oftentimes of all of these health issues that we're having. So I want to say this too. We've saved literally tens of thousands of dollars over the years. Joe and I had this conversation. This was about 3-4 years ago. I was thinking, oh, we've probably saved about 20,000. He was like, Heidi, it's probably more like 40,000 between prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs. And I'm sure at this point, years later, it is. And I have a student I'll be sharing with you later. We'll talk about some money-saving math here in a second. We are medically self-reliant. We grow a lot of our own herbs at this point that I can just go harvest. And if we don't grow them, I know where to source them, and I will share that with you. I know exactly what's in our medicines because I make them myself. I know that I can feel really good giving my grandchildren natural options, and they all get a care box a few times a year. But best of all, I'm leaving them a legacy. When I grew up, there was no legacy. There was no knowledge of this in our family. It had, everybody had succumbed to the medical industry, and there was nothing. I'm leaving knowledge to the people who want it at this point. And I want to spread that so everybody can do that too. So what's ahead? Feeling confident and safe in your herbal choices, being prepared for illnesses and sicknesses if you do get ill or sick, or just dealing with maybe some chronic issues that you've got. Being prepared, experiencing true healing. You guys, herbs truly help. They help your body heal. Your body's meant to heal itself. Your body, that's all it's meant to do is keep us alive and make us well. Well, we get into the way of it when we eat bad foods and we're exposing ourselves to toxins all the time in our skincare and in the environment. But worse, we're taking these drugs that are not good for us. They just mask the symptoms. You might be empowering your health choices and saving thousands of dollars. Let's see here. I'm trying to decide if I should tell you that story about how my student almost died, but I will in a moment if I have time. There are roadblocks to learning herbalism these days, and they're changing. They're morphing all over the place. So back in the day when I started learning, I just mentioned that there was no information to be found. I searched. Google was brand new, and I did all these searches, and there wasn't a whole lot out there. And there were I looked for herbalism schools, and you all had, at that time, you had to pack up and go apply and go in person to the school. And of course I couldn't do that. Sorry, my dogs are barking. So I couldn't do that. And then I came across a snail mail course that was correspondence. So I had to mail in my homework and do it that way. And that was great because I finally had a source where I could get information and learn. But my very first resource was a simple book, and it took me forever. So for me, it took me a long, long time to learn. These days, it's different. There's so much information online now. The problem is that they can't be trusted half the time. They just can't. I've seen some really dangerous herbal remedies and recipes online that they make me sick to my stomach because somebody could really get hurt. So there's that problem. The other problem with online sources is artificial intelligence, which it's here to stay. And now if you ask an herbal question, and I've done some experimenting, AI spits out stuff that's completely wrong. And it's because it's learning, and it's just really scary as far as I'm concerned. Also, the information is not organized, it's not structured, and it's not easy to find because back in 2018, Google made a change in their algorithm, and it's called the Medic Update. And what they did was they decided that the only things that were going to show on the first page, which is where everybody searches, are medical sites. And so now if you go to search herbal information, you're either going to get a medical site, or you're going to likely get a site where you've got a little researcher who's just out of college, who's not an herbalist, writing a brief little article. So you need to be really careful. Also, many people, tell me if this is you. You've tried to start learning, but you don't even know where to begin. Is anybody there? I know that's where I was. I didn't know where to start, and there was nothing. Now people don't know where to start because there's too much. And then what herbs do you start with first? How on earth do you choose the herbs that you want to start with for your family and yourself? And then which herbal preparations are the best to use? Give me a yes if any of you wonder about that. Like, when do you use a tincture versus when do you use an herbal tea versus when do you use a roller bottle? We have all these questions, right? Do you really need all these herbs and essential oils? And the answer is no. I'm just going to tell you the answer to that one right now. You don't need all the herbs and essential oils. Guess what? You only need the ones that your family needs, and that's it. When I started learning, the lady that I learned from, who I just adore, she was an old-time herbalist. That's the one with the correspondence course. She recommended getting pennyroyal. And pennyroyal is a low-dose herb, and I didn't know that, and I didn't know really how to use it. So thankfully, I never used it. But now I know that it has some real toxicity issues. So we need to learn these things. We need to know what herbs to use. Do you ever wonder, will herbs really work? I don't know about you, but I know, like for me, the first time I ever dabbled in herbs, I think I was in my mid-30s. And I went to Whole Foods because I heard that Tulsi would help me with my anxiety and my emotional health. And I bought some Tulsi caplets and took them, and they didn't work. And I'm sorry, I'm laughing now because they didn't work because I wasn't using them right. And they were also likely very old and not a high quality. So, and also I wasn't thinking about them the right way. I was thinking about them much as a medical doctor would think about, like, plants or medicines. You take it, what herb do you take for this or that? Herbalism is a lot more than that. And then time. Do you have enough time to do this? What about the cost? Do you have to, how much do you have to buy versus can you grow, right? Or, can you buy smaller amounts and save money? And, what about that? And then how do you talk your family into going natural? Some families are just not open to this. And I hear this in comments all the time. People don't understand herbalism and what it really is. And they basically, are like, no, I'm not doing that. But it's a fact that in our support groups, we help people work through those issues with their families. So I'm curious, you guys, why did you show up today? Like, what are you ultimately hoping to get out of this? I'm going to read some of your responses, and then we're going to dive into the plants. But what are you hoping to leave here with today? I'll just wait a second. And there's a lag time. I think there's a few seconds of lag time. New knowledge, Jess said. Yes. To learn what I can do safely, personal gain. I'm looking to find natural remedies to replace my medications for chronic illnesses. Absolutely. Knowledge to grow my own herbs for the family. Knowledge. I want to expand my herbal knowledge. Oh, you guys are going to love these herbs if you're here for knowledge. Which plants to plant. Again, some more knowledge. A permanent remedy for acid reflux to treat my family safely. Been learning and growing herbs, so eager to know and understand more. Yes, some of you guys are already on this journey. Kevin says, I've always loved natural remedies, and now I really want to work with them and even start selling. Good. You get into an herbal business. You can make up the money pretty quickly if you're making good products. Anne says to get off the pharmaceuticals and to grow herbs. And Karen says, I've had a fascination with herbs for decades and it served me well, but always looking to learn more. Good. To be an artist of plants. Cassandra, I love that. That's what herbalists are. We're artists. We are scientists and we are artists. And amazing. Paul says our food system is poisoned. Our doctors are misinformed. I know God has given us everything we need. It's frustrating. I'm going to share this with you. My daughter, who is 28, and I love her to death. She's such a wonderful girl. She's in medical school. She's finishing up right now, getting ready to go on her, start her residency. And I just came back from a visit with her recently. And You know, she used to do a lot of the research for our plant master classes in the Confident Herbalist tribe. So she's aware, very, very well aware of herbal medicine. And so she's been battling in the medical school with the allopathic, reductionistic, you know, they just want to look at body systems separately versus how, you know, I do things, which is very holistically. The whole body operates as a whole, and you can't separate out the parts. So anyhow, it's there. And I've got a lot of medical people in our family. I'm not against medicine if it's done right. By the way, I don't go to doctors, but if I broke my leg, I think I sure would. Selena says, I just want to make sure I'm making sure the right herbs in order to get off the meds in a natural way. And for knowledge, yeah. Oh boy. Okay. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of good reasons to turn to herbalism. The truth is you can have better health for yourself and your family. We're going to dive into the plants now. So 5 best herbs to start your home apothecary. We're going to talk about thyme, German chamomile, ginger, garlic, and sage. You can buy all of these in any decent grocery store, and you can buy some of them fresh. So these are the ones we're going to talk about. Each plant is going to have 2 slides, okay? The first slide, you're going to see a lot of medical verbiage, terminology, and I will briefly explain these. It's really not necessary for you to know these yet, but if you plan to study herbalism, you will want to learn these words. But I'm going to, on the second slide, talk about how some of these medical action words apply to practical uses so that you can get an idea of how to use these in your home, okay? And then again, the book, if you stay on till the end, you will get a link to get this guide at the end. It's 29 pages, and it does have some recipes and remedies in it too. So just for those of you who came on a little bit later, I just want to share that with you as well. All right, so thyme. Let's take a look at thyme. So thyme, I know I'm small in the corner, but I'm going to hold these up. This is a little sprig of thyme. This came from my garden, and I just love it. It smells so good. And then I want to show you this because there are different forms of an herb. Here we have dried thyme, okay? And here, one of my favorite things, guess what that is? That is an herbal thyme tincture. And I made this back in 2000, either 15 or 16. The label is kind of got rubbed off. And this tincture will last indefinitely. I've used it a few times. But thyme is one of those very powerful herbs that, you know, you don't have to use a lot of it for it to be really effective. And then I want to show you, we have thyme essential oils. The reason I'm holding up 3 of them is because some plants, and thyme is one of them, they have different chemical makeups depending on when you harvest them and where they're grown. And the only time, you don't have to be concerned with that when you're dealing with the fresh plant like this. The plant's going to be very benign and safe. But with the essential oils, if it's got a chemotype or it's high in a certain chemical, you're going to want to know that. And a good company will put that on the bottle. So this one is a chemotype of linalool, which means it's going to be calming and relaxing. It will still have the antimicrobial benefits. This thyme is chemotype thymol, very powerful medicinally, and it does not smell very good. This one smells lovely. And this one is thyme with a chemotype of geraniol. And this one is really nice for skin issues. And it smells a little bit lemony. So let's talk about thyme. It's in the mint family. That's Lamiaceae. You use the leaves. It's warming and it's drying. So, okay, let's talk energetics for a moment. When we say energetics, we're not talking about anything woo-woo or weird. What we're talking about is a few different things, depending on if we're talking about a plant or a person or a condition. But typically, these plants, people, and condition will have constituent states. So we talk about warming versus cooling. We talk about drying versus moist or damp. And we talk about tenseness versus relaxed states, or laxity, we call it. So energetically speaking, we can just know thyme is going to warm us up in some way, and it's going to dry us. That's important because we're going to talk about different fevers in just a moment. Thyme is antibacterial, it's antimicrobial, it's antiseptic, it's carminative, so it supports the digestive system. It's a diaphoretic. That means it's helpful with fevers. It's an antispasmodic, expectorant, helps the lungs. Emmenagogue, it helps the menstrual cycle and system. Very supportive of the uterus. It is a vermifuge and an antiparasitic, so it gets rid of worms and parasites. And the essential oils do a whole host of other things, or do these things here much more strongly than the plant does. Essential oil, and since I have studied both, I use both herbs and essential oils, and I teach them together in my apothecary classes. Just want to give you a heads up on that. But with that said, people who don't like essential oils can just only use the herbs, and people who don't like the herbs and want to use essential oils can just choose to use the essential oils. Anyway, here's some practical uses. Infections. I can't tell you how many times I have used thyme in conjunction with Oregon grapefruit, especially for certain kinds of infections, eye infections, skin infections, wounds, because that are looking like they might be getting infected. Thyme is extremely powerful and helpful for those. Cold and flu symptoms, including coughs, urinary tract infections, yeast infections. Thyme is amazing, actually, for candida, and if you have a yeast infection. Topical fungal infections, dyspepsia, healing wounds and cuts, soothing burns, congestion, oral care. Thyme's wonderful for the mouth. We'll talk about another herb in a minute that's also really good for the mouth, but mouth care is huge. If you have an unhealthy mouth, you have issues elsewhere in your body too. People are becoming aware of that now. It's super helpful as an anti-inflammatory, and it helps with menstrual cramping. So you can make a tea, you can make a tincture, you can use thyme in your food, which is really a great way to use your herbs. But yeah, it's lots of things to do with thyme. All right. So we just talked about thyme. Let's move on to chamomile for a second here. And I want to remind you, you will get recipes and remedies in the guide at the end. So here, I've got a box of chamomile tea, and I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm generally not a fan of boxed herbal teas in the stores. This happens to be one of the brands I will buy from if I have to, and it's Traditional Medicinals. This is actually Rosemary Gladstar's original company, and I feel like they have stayed pretty true to her formulas and they've got integrity. But anyway, so this is a little bag of chamomile tea. One thing to know about the boxed teas is usually they're going to be stale. They're also usually going to be oxidized. So they're not going to be of the best quality. And you can see how tiny those little pieces are in the bag. And actually, that's a good size. Most chamomile tea bags I've seen, they're powdered and they're just not great. But this is wonderful. You could dip this in hot water and use it as an eye compress for this chamomile is also really great for conjunctivitis and things of that nature. Let's talk about other forms of chamomile. Here I've got some dried chamomile. This came from the garden. We got a little cold freeze the other day, so my flowers are gone. I can't show you fresh, but usually I have a ton of flowers. And this is German chamomile essential oil, and I want you to look at that top. Can you see that? It's blue. This is one of the very, very special blue essential oils. There's not very many of them. They contain a chemical called chemazoline, and it's highly anti-inflammatory. This is one of the essential oils. If I'm making a pain relief blend, this one's almost always in it. Okay, we've got chamomile infused herbal oil. You can see that. And that is wonderful for the skin and making salves, making relaxing roller bottles. This is chamomile tincture. And chamomile tincture can be really helpful all by itself for relaxation and sleep, calming, people who are just over the top, just calming down gently. I love German chamomile. I always get asked too, can you substitute the chamomile straight across? The answer is yes and no. If you've got Roman chamomile going, you can substitute the actual herb, the plant. Most people grow German chamomile in our country, including myself. You cannot substitute across the board the essential oils. The essential oils have different compounds in them, which is really interesting. So let's talk about Matricaria recitata. I love this plant. It's an aster family plant. Some people might have a little allergy to the asters. So if you know that you do, just be careful the first time you use chamomile, knowing that you might have a reaction. But I've only come across, I think in all the years I've been practicing, 2 people who have, and I'm not as clients, I'm just talking about just all over the place, even on my email list, who've said they've had issues with chamomile. So it's pretty rare. It is all of these herbs I'm sharing with you today are grass. That means they're generally regarded as safe. Okay. The flowers are the parts used. Energetically, German chamomile is cooling and it's drying. So we're going to get to the fever section here in just a moment. It's an aromatic. It does contain the essential oils, like I just showed you. It's a nervine, which means a nervine herb is one that acts on the nervous system in some way. Chamomile happens to be relaxing, but you can have stimulating nervines. Those are the ones that energize you, like caffeine is a great example. You can have sedating nervine herbs. Those are the ones that just put you out. You can have antispasmodic nervine herbs, and you can have nootropic nervine herbs. Those are the nervines that work on the brain and help you with your thought processes. So there's all these things to know about herbal medicine. That's amazing. It's a carminative, very helpful for the digestive system, especially with babies and children. It's a diaphoretic for hot fevers. Let's talk about that for a moment. A diaphoretic is an herb that helps to support the fever response. And that's what we want to do. We don't want our fever to just go away. We want our fevers to do what they're supposed to do in the body, which is to kill the pathogens, right? And if we get in the way of that by reducing the fever, then guess what? We're going to not get better. I think I will tell you the story really quickly of my little 4th grade student. So I had a little boy in my class who didn't show up for school for a couple of days. I called his grandma, who took care of him, and I said, hey, where's so-and-so? I'll leave his name out for privacy. But she said, well, he's sick. And I took him to the doctor and he's on antibiotics and hopefully will be back soon. Well, he didn't come back and he didn't come back. And then he came back for a day and then he left again. And I'm thinking, what on earth? So I called her again and I said, hey, I'm really worried. What's going on? And she explained that the doctor had said she'd gone back to the doctor and the doctor had told her to keep doing what she was doing, which was to give him Tylenol, acetaminophen to cover the fever and make him more comfortable and to keep taking the antibiotics. So she was doing what the doctor said. Well, that my little student went into seizures. And he ended up being hauled off in an ambulance. And by the time he got to the hospital, he was in a coma. He was in a coma for about 2 weeks, I think. Well, what they discovered was that he was on the wrong antibiotic for what was going on. He had something with his ear, some kind of an infection, and the antibiotic just wasn't working. Meanwhile, the Tylenol, the acetaminophen, was covering up the fever response, so the fever couldn't even go to work. And finally, his little body couldn't take it anymore, and there he went. So luckily, they figured it out in time, and he did come out of the coma. He came back to school, but he was out for like a month. And I get the chills. I have them right now when I remember that story because he could have died. He could have died. And that's an example of how our over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs can, if they're used inappropriately, just mask symptoms that we really need to be aware of, where herbs can go to work and support that whole healing response. So let's talk fevers for a moment. If you've got a hot fever, then notice the energetics on chamomile. It's cooling and drying, okay? For a hot fever, one that's like the scary kind that you've got, it's 103, 104, and you want to bring it down, then this is a wonderful herb to take. You can even bathe in the chamomile tea, especially if you have a little child, a baby or a toddler. But that can help to cool the body and bring it down. You can also do other things too, like peppermint compresses and things like that. In my newsletter a couple weeks ago, I wrote about when to use a hot compress versus a cold compress. If you're on my newsletter list, then you're going to be every week getting 2 notes, and I share herbal tips every week on that newsletter too. But yeah, so that's when you want to use chamomile for a fever. Now, let's just say you've got the kind of fever that's low grade. It's like hovering around 100, 101 maybe, and you're just uncomfortable and it's not breaking. You know what? That's when you'd want to use thyme or one of these other warmer herbs that we're going to talk about. Thyme is warming. So what that's going to do is it will gently heat the internal temperature of the body, just a little bit, doesn't have to be a lot. And guess what? That can help bring the fever up to where it needs to be, not in an uncomfortable way. And then it can go to work killing those pathogens, and then it breaks. So these are just some little things to know about herbs. They're not all used the same way. Let's see. So we've talked about it being a mild sedative. It's an antispasmodic. If you are a person with restless leg syndrome or you've got digestive issues like IBS, German chamomile is a gentle herb to use for that. There are others that are more strong antispasmodic choices, but German chamomile is a great choice to start off with. It's a vulnerary, so it's skin healing, and it's an anti-inflammatory herb as well, which we learned when we talked about the essential oil. How many of you feel excited about this right now? Just being able to know what all these herbs can actually do. Does anybody feel like, oh my goodness, like some hope? There's hope to learn herbalism here. There's things you can actually do with these normal plants that are amazing. Let's talk about, go ahead and put that in the chat if that's the case. Let's talk about uses for chamomile. Okay, one of my favorite ways to use chamomile. Yes, thanks you guys. Giddy even. I know, Karen, it's amazing when you start learning about these plants. But I really love using chamomile for children and adults too, but really with kids a lot. If they lack focus or if they're hyperactive, if they, even if they have a formal diagnosis of ADHD, generally chamomile is very safe to use, even if the child's on meds. But you do want to ask a doctor first, of course, because I have to say that because I'm not a doctor. But chamomile, and you can use the essential oil and or the herb, can do wonderful things for a child's focus and the brain. So I want it, especially if it's a hyper kind of lack of focus. Chamomile is wonderful for irritability. So have you ever seen, tell me if you've ever dealt with this, a toddler who's like so tired, and they just cry and yet they won't go to sleep. Anybody ever deal with that? I have, but chamomile is really wonderful in those kinds of cases for adults and kids. Restlessness, it's helpful with insomnia, digestion, gas and bloating, hot, wet fevers, colds and flu symptoms, teething. Here's a tip. And I get so upset, you guys, because I didn't know any of this back when I was having my babies, in the 80s. I didn't know any of this, and I should have. And it's not my fault. The fault is the powers that be that took this knowledge away from us all. I mean, this should be common knowledge. But here's a tip for teething. If you take a washcloth, clean one, dip it in really, really strong chamomile tea a few times, wring it out, and put it in the freezer, okay? And then when the baby needs to chew on something, hand them that washcloth. They can chew on it. They get the benefit of the cold from the because it's frozen. And also the chamomile tea goes to work and helps with oral health as well for the baby, and also the inflammation. Colic. Here's another one. I remember when my first son was born, I was a baby myself. I had my children really early in my life. And I didn't have any help with my first son at all. And I remember he had colic so bad, and he would wake up and I would be awake with him for hours in the middle of the night, and he would just scream and scream and scream. And I didn't know what to do. And I sat there and just cried. I cried with him and tried to hold him, and it was awful. But if I knew what I know now, which I want everybody to know this, I know that I was nursing. If I had taken a good cup of chamomile tea about 30 minutes before breastfeeding him, he likely would have had less colic or no colic. Do you know? It's stuff like that we need to relearn. Chamomile is also good for burns and skin healing, conjunctivitis, and rashes. So it's wonderful for the skin. All right, I've got to start going faster because I get so excited about these plants. Next up, we're going to talk about ginger. So look at this. I grow ginger, and this came out of the planter. This is a little knob of ginger, and this is the leaf, the stalk and the leaf that it's on. I'm so excited about it. Here, I'll show you this too. You can see. Maybe I should wait till I turn the camera back on. But this is one of my planters. I have several of them because I'm trying to get a lot of ginger. But this is dried ginger. I like to, if I buy it dried, you can buy it powdered, which I do put in my coffee every morning. But this is the dried, cut, and sifted. It's really good in herbal teas. And then I've got the essential oil because ginger happens to be an aromatic. I love it. Oh gosh, it smells so good. You can tincture ginger. You can use it in infused oils. A lot of times I will add it to my cayenne when I infuse it in oil because it's an amazing pain reliever. Ginger is one of those herbs I think that everybody should have on hand. It's Zingiber officinalis. It's from the family Zingeraceae. It's the same family as turmeric and finger root and a number of other herbs. The parts used are the rhizomes, and we can see that here. The rhizome is this part. It's actually part of the stem. These are the roots, the actual roots. But and we just call it ginger root because it's under the ground. But technically speaking, this is not a root. It's a rhizome, something a little bit different. It is warming and hot, and a lot of herbalists will just tell you it's warming, but actually the dried herb is hotter than the fresh herb. So if you want to do a little experiment, tincture or make an herbal tea of the fresh versus the dried herb and then taste them. You'll be pretty amazed. Ginger is drying. Like I said, it's an aromatic, it's anti-inflammatory. I usually will include ginger in combination with my German chamomile, among other essential oils when I'm making pain relief kinds of things, especially for cold conditions like arthritis. Really, really helpful. Ginger's wonderful for dry fevers, those ones where you're just hot but you're not sweating yet. It'll increase that temperature in your body. It's a stimulating expectorant, so wonderfully it helps to get the mucus out of your lungs if you've got mucus in there. It is a digestive. It's pain relieving. It's an analgesic. It's an antimicrobial. It enhances the circulation, and that's because it's a rubefacient. It not only enhances the circulation to the surface of the skin, which is what a rubefacient does, but it enhances the circulation throughout the body. So you want, if you're a person who's got coldness in your fingers and your feet, and you've got peripheral like nerve things going on, ginger's wonderful to take on a daily basis for things like this. And it can be helpful right away, but over time, it can really just support that circulatory system wonderfully. It's a vermifuge, which means it's a dewormer. Teresa here says, I used it when I was trying to stop smoking. Yes, it does have some capabilities when it comes to, addictions and needs of things like this. And yes, there is a replay, Laura. Okay. We'll go to the next slide here. Here are practical uses for ginger. Arthritis, topically and also internally. Muscle pain and sore muscles. It's a wonderful rub. Migraine headaches, colds and flu symptoms, nausea. One of the things about nausea, if you've got kids with car sickness or you're going on an airplane and you have troubles, I used to, and then I got used to it, just take a little nickel, they call it a nickel, you just cut off a little nickel-sized piece of ginger and stick it in your cheek, and that can often solve the problem. Another thing I like to do is, along with that, is put some lavender essential oil behind my ears. And that can, or the child's ears as well. And that can really be helpful with car sickness. Gut health, menstrual cramping, ear infections, circulatory enhancer, inflammation, stomach flu, fevers, and honestly, there's a whole lot more ginger can do. Marlene says it works great for my periods pain. It really does. Menstrual cramps are no fun, and there are herbs and essential oils you can use to help with those. Okay, moving on, we've got garlic. So here I've got a bulb of garlic, which you guys have all seen bulbs of garlic before. Here I've got some freeze-dried garlic. This just came from the store, and I love using that in different recipes. I'm going to give you a tip on this. These are fresh garlic cloves, and this is how I store them. I basically will fill this half-gallon jar with the cloves, and then I pour white vinegar over the top to within an inch or so, making sure all of the cloves are underneath, and I just put it in the fridge. It lasts for months. What it does is it infuses the vinegar with the garlic compound, so that's one thing, and you can cook with that and use it for salad dressings. But when I'm cooking different things like kitchery or soups or stews, I'll just take these cloves right out of there. If I want to mince them up, if I have time, I'll do that. Otherwise, I just stick them in there whole. But that's a great way to preserve your garlic. Garlic's also it's an aromatic, and yes, there is garlic essential oil, and it's very, very powerful. It's kind of hard to find. I actually bought that from a European aromatherapy company. And in places in Europe, the aromatherapy is a medical practice. It's legit, like you have to go to medical school to study it, practice. So that's why I found that in Europe, I'm sure, but I have never found it in the States. Okay, Allium sativum. It comes from the family Alliaceae, so it's an allium family herb, and it's the bulb and the scapes that are used. The scapes are like the little early flower tops. Energetically, it's very warming and drying. And actually, garlic is also considered hot. If you have to be very careful if you're putting either just the herb or the essential oil directly on your skin, you want to kind of avoid that and be sure that it's buffered with a carrier oil or something or a cloth or something in between, because it can actually burn the skin. It is a circulatory stimulant. This is an herb I take every single day. It's one of the ways I manage high blood pressure for myself. It's one of my part of my protocol. It's an alterative, and that is not spelled wrong. An alterative is a balancing herb, and we're going to talk more about that on the next slide. It's a diaphoretic, it's an expectorant, it's an antimicrobial, it's a carminative for digestion. It's an immunomodulant, which I love this aspect of it. So some herbs that deal with the immune system, they can be immunostimulating, which means they boost the immune system. Echinacea is in that category. They might be immunodepressing, which means that they can actually depress immune system activity. And garlic is one of those very special plants that goes in there and it either boosts the immune system or it depresses it, depending on what's going on in the body. I keep saying this, it's almost like magic, but God knew what he was doing when he gave us these plants, and they work. We just need to learn to use them. It's a vermifuge. It's a very strong vermifuge. It's a wonderful dewormer. A lot of people think that it's toxic to dogs, but if you're using it in appropriate amounts, it's actually a good way to help them with worms and things. And it's a tonic. Many people take it daily, like I do. Uses for garlic. Okay, so high blood pressure. I want to mention that it's also helpful for hypotension as well. And that's where, again, it's an alternative herb. It gets into your body and it just does what it needs to do. All right. One of the ways it acts as a hypotensive is that it increases circulation, but it's a vasodilator too. So it dilates those arteries and capillaries, and that helps the blood flow easier. So it's kind of just makes your body do what it's supposed to. It's wonderful for fungal infections. It helps to balance cholesterol levels. It's great for cold and flu symptoms. It's great for congestion in the bronchial passages. I try to eat a clove of garlic a day if I can. And sometimes I've been called out on that. Ooh, garlic breath. I don't care. But anyway, bad yeast and bacterial overgrowth in the gut. Garlic taken internally is one of my favorite supporters of a healthy gut microbiome. It's wonderful. It's great for digestion and diarrhea and worms, insulin resistance. So it helps to balance blood glucose levels, and it's supportive of asthma. We have plant master classes that are very, very deeply researched inside the Confident Herbalist tribe. And I think the garlic master classes the book that goes with it, there's videos in a book. It's like 80 pages long with all of the things it does and the research. It's crazy. It's a wonderful herb. Okay, moving on to sage. So this is sage. Isn't that gorgeous? I love sage. It came from my garden. This is dried sage that came out of my garden last year. And sage tincture. This is also a very old tincture from 2016. I love this again because tinctures last indefinitely. And then here's the essential oil. It is an aromatic, and I love breathing in sage. Because it supports your brain, and who doesn't want that, right? So it's a mint family, family Lamiaceae. Parts used are the aerial parts. Energetically, it's warming and drying. It's an aromatic, obviously. There are more actions. I don't have them all on the sage slide, but I think I was getting tired when I did this one. It is an astringent. One of its best capabilities is as an astringent herb. It tightens and tones tissues. So I love using it for sore throats. You know, when you get a sore throat and it's all hot and red and inflamed, it's just, it's awful, right? Well, if you make a sore throat spray with sage, then it tightens and tones the tissues almost immediately. It reduces pain, it reduces the inflammation, and on top of it, it contains antimicrobial compounds that actually help the body to heal from the sore throat. So that's really, really helpful. It's a diaphoretic as well. It's also a digestive herb. It's an antiseptic. It's one of my favorites to use when there's something topical going on. I'm not sure if I use sage with my cat when he had a gash in his groin from a fight. It was really deep. I have this video on YouTube, but if you want to know what I did for my cat, you can find out in that YouTube video. But it was either thyme or sage that I used. Either one of them would have been wonderful. Circulatory stimulant, antispasmodic for smooth muscle. Yes, and you guys, if you have questions, remember to use the Q&A box up there because I will answer them then. But I do see this one. I thought tinctures, Yay My Aunt says, I thought tinctures only last 3 to 5 years, even the ones with alcohol. No, that is incorrect. Now, when you're buying commercial tinctures, they have to put a best by date. And generally speaking, they'll do 3 to 5 years. However, this which I made here at home. This is going to last indefinitely if it's stored correctly. And I think I said at the beginning of this that scientists actually have found tinctures that are 100-ish years old that are still in good shape. So yes, they probably will degrade a little bit over time, but honestly, this is still as good as, it's probably better than when it was all done being processed. And this one was made in 2016. So what is that, 8 years ago? And it's very, very powerful. Isn't that great? I spent a little bit of money 8 years ago on this tincture. I still have it. I still have a lot of doses here, and it lasts forever. That's one of the money-saving aspects of herbalism. It's a circulatory stimulant, and it's I just said all this, and it's an antispasmodic for the smooth muscle. It's really helpful for the stomach, specifically, and the intestines. So here are some uses for sage. Anything to do with the mouth. It's great for like canker sores, and if there's like loose conditions in the mouth, if you have flaccid gums or bleeding gums, sage is really helpful. Super for sore throat, excessive sweating. If you're a person who sweats a lot, or if you're a woman, like I just went through menopause last year or the year before or something. But boy, the hot flashes, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to die for a while. Sage is really helpful with that because it's drying. Infections, digestion, diabetes support, toothache, sore muscles, high cholesterol, cognitive health. It's one of the nootropic herbs. And there have been clinical studies done on it. Finally, they're doing more clinical studies on herbs and essential oils. But they've done studies on people with early onset Alzheimer's and have found that sage can be very, very helpful. Liver complaints, cold and flu symptoms, and it's an energizing herb. So one of the things I'm going to tell you my favorite blend for when I have to do thinking work that's like requires like thoughts. Lemon, sage, rosemary, peppermint. That blend is amazing. And I just plop a few drops of each of those in my diffuser, and wow, what a difference. But you can see, you guys, herbs do work. I want to ask you, is anybody feeling a little overwhelmed right now? And if you are, that's okay. I'm just curious. Or are you feeling good? Where are you at with all this right now? And do you think that this would work for you? You know, do you see some hope, some light at the end of the tunnel if you're starting your journey in herbalism? So if you've been struggling to use herbs successfully, this is probably why. And I'm going to share with you a couple things feeling good and excited. Awesome. First off, we talked about this a little bit before, information overload and overwhelm. Some of you are half and half. What was that combination? Lemon, sage, peppermint, and rosemary. Okay. There's a lot to learn, you guys. When you start in, it's like you realize very quickly that you're going to be learning this forever. I will never stop learning. Nobody knows it all. It's impossible. The thing is, though, is that you do need to figure out which herbs are best for you, and a real person can help with this, a real live person. You can't just go and watch a ton of YouTube videos and learn herbalism. You can get some ideas, but you just can't learn herbalism that way. And you can't learn everything. But what you do need to do is figure out exactly what you need to focus on. And I can help you with that. Here's Matt. He's one of my students, and he's actually going to be helping with our aromatherapy case studies too in the certification course. He's amazing. But he put his home apothecary together. And right after he started with me, and I think he's been with me for about 4 years now, but he was able to completely stop taking his allergy medications like years ago. And this is incredible. But his doctor told him that he also didn't have to go on his meds for the hypertension anymore either. So he was working on some things for his body to support the health issues that he was having. He now takes daily herbal tinctures, and he says, keep an open mind and be willing and ready for life-changing results. And that's seriously what herbs can do for you. You can see his son in the corner of that picture. His son is now really tall. He's a young adult basically at this point. But Matt really put together some beautiful blends for him as he was going through puberty, and really helped him in that process, both emotionally with emotional health and also with the acne, as well as the growing pains and things that teenagers go through. All right, number 2. This is another little roadblock with learning herbalism, and that's a lack of having a structured plan. And you guys, over the years, I've taught over 1,000 students at this point. Probably more like, if you take all of my courses, and since I started teaching, it would be in the thousands. But I've seen this over and over again. Some people are afraid to start, and some people get really excited and do too much. Okay. I'm the last one. I got all excited, and I wasted a lot of money and time because I was doing too much. I didn't have a plan. And then I've run across students in the past, where they've been studying with me for a while, especially like if they just join the tribe. And I'm like, well, why don't you have an apothecary going? Because when I first put out Ditch the Drugstore, there were people, I was telling them, you don't need Ditch the Drugstore. You've been studying with me for, a year or so. You don't worry about it. You're good. And then one student finally said, I think I'm going to take it. I think I need it. And then she finally came back to me after the first round of Ditch the Drugstore years ago. And she said, hey, I finally got my apothecary going. And I said, well, what was the hang up? And she says, I had paralysis by analysis. She said, I wanted everything to work and be perfect. And so I just never got started, but Ditch the Drugstore helped her with that. So those are the two extremes. So the thing is that whichever one you are, if you have a way to organize and plan out exactly what you need for your unique apothecary, you can do this. And then that structure keeps you on task and going. You stay away from being overwhelmed, and you keep it mentally relaxing. And it's so fun. You don't need all the herbs. And I said this at the beginning, you just need the ones that your family needs. Here's Cindy. Cindy says that after she took Ditch the Drugstore, her confidence in her herbal journey exploded. It really did. She's like a master herbalist. She's incredible. But now she has what she needs ready to go when she needs them, and she's sharing with her friends and family. She goes on to say, I have such a better quality of life now. She had a lot of health issues, unbeknownst to me. And we have a celebration day at the end of our apothecary course, Ditch the Drugstore. She came to that, and she unmuted her mic and shared that she got off of this and this and this and this drug. And I was horrified. I'll tell you, I was horrified because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, liability. And I asked her, I said, you did, like, you notify your doctor and everything, right? And she says, yes, she did have her doctor's oversight. So she was very responsible with it. And I was so happy to hear that. But she got off of her meds really fast. Fear of not having enough time or money. You guys, we're all scared of this. You know what? This is a thing, right? It's just what it is. But you've got to realize that fear keeps you trapped in the situation that you're in. Your brain wants to keep you safe, and right now you're safe. So it just keeps you in this place. But the thing is that if you really want to learn herbalism, you've got to overcome that fear and jump right in. And the thing is that anything worth learning or doing does require some kind of time and or money investment. It really does. The key is to find a program where you can achieve the useful and practical information that you need without spending an arm and a leg. You don't have to buy all the herbs and essential oils that I started out with. You need just the ones that your family needs. You need to dial that in. But herbalism too, with time, some people say, oh, I don't have time to learn herbalism right now. The fact of the matter is that yes, you do need to devote some time to it. But when I started learning herbalism, like for real, when I stopped dabbling and really started taking it serious, I still had kids at home. They were all in sports. I was a working mom. It was crazy. My life was crazy. What I did was I just committed to myself that I was going to spend 5 or 10 minutes every day and learn something. like get some new thing. And over time it built up. And then I would have my herbs there on the countertop and I would throw a tincture together while I was making dinner or, you know, get things ready that way. And then I could experiment and learn. So I did it in the margins of my life in those days. Here's Amy. Amy's one of my older students too, and this is years ago. So we're going to do a little bit of math right now. Amy says, I've been able to replace my inhaler, which she used to take twice daily, for a simple, safe tincture. Okay. That being said, I have not had to take my inhaler for a year now. This has not only helped me not put harmful steroids in my body, it's also saved me $135 a month. Now, I'm going to venture to guess this was years ago for her. Like when I first started Ditch the Drugstore, that $135 a month is probably more at this point. Now let's do a little math though. And let's just say it is $135 a month for her, you know, her meds for that one med. She was on other ones that she got off of too. So now we've got 135 times 12 times, let's just say, you know, 3.5 years. You guys, that's thousands of dollars for that one drug that she saved. Thousands of dollars, not to mention all the over-the-counter drugs, not to mention the other prescription drugs. It's crazy. Another thing about Amy, I'm going to share this real quick, but she, after Ditch the Drugstore, she got into the tribe, the Confident Herbalist Tribe, and that's our herbal membership. And she was asking a lot of questions about kidneys and kidney support and herbs that, you know, help support the kidneys. And she put together a tea for herself, and she had been drinking this tea every day. Well, she came into the group and she posted, I have a win. She said, well, she told us that she had seen her doctor about 6 months earlier, and the doctor had told her, hey, you are, you know, better start planning on going on dialysis, because that's where your kidney functions are. Next time you come in, you know, if anything like decreases, you're back on, or whatever, you know, if the kidneys get worse, you're on dialysis. And she goes, but I was drinking this tea, I've been doing this, and she was doing some lifestyle things. And she said, hallelujah. She says, I went from stage 4 to stage 3. And she said, my doctor was amazed and says, you don't have to go on dialysis now. So it's things like this. We just need to support our bodies. It's crazy. Amy went on to say, though, needless to say, herbs have changed my life and are helping my husband and I to get healthy. This journey is a blessing, and it really is. So you're probably wondering, and I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit more with you about Ditch the Drugstore, the course. Because you're probably wondering, how on earth do you get this going? How do you get your apothecary going, right? From being complicated and confusing to being simple and strategic. And that's what we want to do when we're tackling herbs. And that's Ditch the Drugstore. And I'm probably going to turn off the camera so I can talk a little bit more about it here in a second. But Ditch the Drugstore is my apothecary course. It's a family herbalism course. There's 2 levels to it. There's the basic level. There's the family herbalist certification level. And you can choose what you want, whichever one you want. And there's different phases. The first phase is where you learn safety, you learn foundations, you learn you learn how to use essential oils, you learn about dosing, you learn medicine making. So there's a lot in the first phase. The second phase is the planning phase. That's when you take the special workbook that I created. Let me see, get my ginger plant out of the way here. And I'm going to show you these. And I'll be giving you the link to the guide in just a second, you guys. But this home apothecary guide is where you actually take the time to dial in your family members that you want to focus on, what their needs are, and then you start making choices about the different herbs and preparations that you want to make. Safety-wise, we've got different books that come with this. And then we have over 200 plus recipes in this course. There's the main Ditch the Drugstore book, and then I think there's like 5 or 6 additional books. I'll show you those in just a minute. But the third phase, after you get the plan done, is work the plan. And that's when you start making your home apothecary. You start making the preparations. Yeah, Jean says the home apothecary guide is priceless. It's so funny. It's not very long, but it really does help you hone in on what you need. And if you don't do it, I've seen students come in and take the course and decide not to do the planning guide or the workbook, and they're lost still after even months. And I've got others that take it really seriously, and they've got a home apothecary within 6 to 8 weeks or a couple months. So it works. It definitely works. Okay. On top of those 3 phases, what we've got is a private student community. That's a bonus. That is amazing. It's also where we hold our live events, because we do go live and I answer questions for students. It's a great place. There's so many people in there and a lot of experience in there right now. And then that says 60, but actually we've got over, I think we're nearing 100 replays now from our live chats. And these are all searchable, you guys. You can go in there and search by keyword, and you can have all of these videos come up in the exact spot where we talk about that topic. And if you find one you like, you can get a transcript of that section. So it's pretty amazing. The value of this course is really, with the lifetime value, with me showing up live, my hourly rate for clients is pretty high. There's that. But, you know, it's a time thing. But most herbalists don't show up for their students. They give you a course, they say bye. You know, I'm here for you. And I have a great team that helps with all of this. But the value is of almost $10,000. The cost is $497. And you will get that apothecary done. We have a guarantee. You can look it over for, I think it's up to 5 days. You should be able to figure out if it's for you or not within that time. But if you decide, I don't think I want this, just notify us and we will give you your money back. And I just want to say that I'm going to answer questions and turn the slide off so you can see me. But wanting change is step 1. But step 2 is taking action. If you never take any action, you're going to be in the exact same place you are now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. And I'm going to tell you, the knowledge builds on itself. If you copy this link, here, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat here. I should have already done this. I'm sorry. But you can click this link over here in the chat area. I think it should show up, and you can find out more about the drugstore if you want. You can just open that tab now and then go back to it later when you have a chance. Lou says, take the course. It is very empowering to realize you can provide safe and effective medicine for your family that you made yourself. Courtney says, this course has changed my life. You'll be astonished at what you can accomplish. Sandy says, we have just not been sick since we started using herbs regularly. I can't thank you enough for giving me the practical instruction and encouragement that I needed. And Sandy's another one who has done some pretty amazing things for her family. Okay, here's where you can get the 5 Herbs book, and I'll put the direct link in the chat too in just a second as soon as I turn the slideshow off. But you can get it at bit.ly/5 Herbs with an S book. Okay. So you can go ahead and open that tab if you want to too. And I think now we're going to do a quick Q&A. So let me see if I can figure out how to stop the slides. I'm going to take a sip of water. All right. And go to the Q&A section if I can, let me see if I can find it. All right, you guys. Oh my goodness, I can't read in the foreign language. I'm so sorry, and I don't have translation ability. I know people write to me sometimes, and if I can do the Google Translate, I can sometimes answer, but I can't. I'm so sorry. And Joe says, put your questions right here. Teresa says, what are your thoughts on calendula plant? I love calendula. Oh my goodness, I grow it. It's a wonderful plant. It reseeds every single year. I just want to say it could have been one of the plants that I talked about in this 5 herbs. There are hundreds of herbs I could have included in this, but I dialed it down to these 5 easy ones. Yes.
You give away the first 10 people for the podcast.
Oh, Joe's reminding me. So we ended up with some extra copies of the Ditch the Drugstore book. I want to show you all books really fast. So this is the Ditch the Drugstore recipe book. It's indexed. I want to share with you. So I just want to tell you we're giving 10 of these away. We have 10 of them for the first 10 people who purchase the Family Herbalist certification option, full price, if you can do that. But we got a pain relieving section, seasonal allergies, cold and flu, respiratory. It's pretty long. It's a very long section. Stress, sleep, relaxation. We've got basic first aid, general female complaints, digestion and elimination. Also a very long section. Your digestion is super, super important to your health. Common skin conditions, a miscellaneous section for things like bugs and healthy bones, and and then boosting the family's immune system. There's an aromatherapy cheat sheet. There's an herbal cheat sheet. And then, yeah, it's a really good book. And this is the hard cover copy. So for those of you who want to take us up on that, we've got that. Another book that comes with it is the cold and flu book. I wrote this book a few years ago, and it goes into all 4 phases of cold and flu. And so there are recipes and remedies in this. That comes with the course. Another book that comes with the course is my herbal salves, oils, butters, and balms. And it's quite a lengthy book as well, with quite a few of my herbal salve and oil recipes. We've got kitchen spices for whole body health. When I wrote this one, I dove into the body systems, and I talked about herbs and spices that are specific for the different systems. And there's remedies in here too. So that comes with the course. There is a booster pack for natural first aid. We have a natural first aid section in the book, but we've got this book as well. And then for the certification, there's a ton more bonuses. I can't even go into them all. You can take a look at those. The Healing Herbs of the Bible course also has a book with it. I got intrigued with, what is going on with herbs in the Bible a few years ago. So I studied that and have recipes and remedies for those. And then, yes, there's a whole bunch. We've got the Ultimate Essential Oil Reference Guide with dilution charts. We've got herbal dosing guidelines for adults and children. And, of course, we've got the planning guide. Very, very important. All righty. So, yes, there's a lot in here. And not to mention the fact that there's the student group and there's the searchable platform with all the videos in there as well. So there's a lot. And people, so I was a school teacher for decades. People learn differently. Some people like videos. We have videos. Some people like reading. We have text. Some people like both. We have both. Some people love interacting with other students. So we have that. Some people want to talk to the teacher. And we have that. Some people just want to go it alone. You can do that too. So you can see the learning is set up so that everybody is going to be handled. But yes, Teresa, back to calendula. It's wonderful, and it's super good for the skin. It's great for your gut. It's wonderful for supporting your stomach if you've got ulcers. It's one of my favorites to use as a bitter herb, which supports the entire digestive system. So yes, calendula is definitely a favorite. And then Debbie says, how did someone with all types of allergies to plants? I'm not sure what that question is, but I'm going to assume that if you've got allergies to different kinds of plants, that you just avoid the plants that you're allergic to. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my own allergies. So when I was a kid, I told you at the beginning that I was on all these pills for allergies. They did this allergy thing, and turns out I was allergic to grass. I was allergic to cats. I was allergic, which we had both. I was allergic to all kinds of things. And over the years, after starting to use herbs and, having the herbs support my immune system, my allergies kind of went away. I don't have allergies to cats anymore. I don't have allergies to grass, even the specific kinds of grasses that were outlined for me earlier. It's really pretty amazing. So I always tell people, you pick the plants that you can work with. If you have an allergy to, chamomile, you're not going to use chamomile, for example. There are other plants that you can use that have similar properties. So a substitute for chamomile might be passion flower or California poppy or skullcap or a number of others, depending on what your intention for use is. So let's see here. Jennifer says, does your herbalism course teach how to use all of the herbs and the medicinal uses, dosing, etc.? It does. So Ditch the Drugstore, the basic one, we kind of gloss over the phytochemistry and all of that. But the family herbalist certification option, we do go deeply into the phytochemistry. You do need to, if you're going to be calling yourself or have a certification of any kind, I do believe you need to understand at least the basics of what certain plants can do and having to do with their chemistry. And so we get into that. We also get into some essential oil data and chemistry as well. So that's how they're kind of different. But they all have the remedies and the recipes. And then the family herbalist certification actually includes everything that's in Ditch the Drugstore plus more courses. There's additional courses. There's one for mental health and wellness, because one of the focuses for my students in either of the choices is to help you with that paradigm shift of going from, okay, what herb do I use for a headache or whatever, to thinking about it this way, holistically. I've got a headache, so what is the cause of the headache? And then, okay, I'm going to work on the cause while I'm also removing the discomfort from the headache. And so we herbalists tend to deal with health way differently than the allopathic. And we want to get rid of that mindset and switch to a more holistic view. Let's see, question from Robin. Can you send me a basic good mix of oils for immunity? I would love to be able to watch my little grandchildren without getting sick. Do you know, we cover immunity heavily in Ditch the Drugstore. I have written about immune system health all over the place on YouTube. I've got videos on the website. So if you don't get the course, you can just get tons of free information from me. I talk about it in my newsletter a lot too. But yes, there are wonderful essential oils for the immune system. In fact, I love this. I'm just going to share this combination really fast with you. If you blend together clove, cinnamon, rosemary, lemon, and eucalyptus essential oils and diffuse it into the air, you're going to clean the air, and all of those oils go to work to help support the immune system in the body. Lemon specifically, because of the limonene chemical in the lemon essential oil, it actually helps boost your white blood cell count, and you need your white blood cells to fight off the pathogens. So yes, there are many things you can do about with your immune system. I think I've got my immune system workshop course in the Family Herbalist 2 certification. Let's see. Shanda says, in your videos, you describe herbs at times with Latin names, etc. Does that mean I can purchase a plant that does not give the correct medicinal properties? It does. Absolutely. And this is why you need to learn about the plants. Let me think of an example. A good example is, do I have my St. John's wort? I do. So here is some St. John's wort tincture that I made from harvested St. John's wort last summer. And isn't it gorgeous, that red color? But this is Hypericum perforatum. Okay. And there are only 2 to 3 medicinal species of St. John's wort. The rest of them are just pretty. So It is absolutely possible to go to a nursery and you might see St. John's wort on the label. And I've noticed that it's getting harder to find nurseries that actually put Latin names on the plants, but you cannot assume that that St. John's wort at the nursery is going to be medicinal. You need to know the Latin names. So yes, that is very, very important. Now, that's not something that you need to know to get your home apothecary up and going. But what ends up happening is with people who get into Ditch the Drugstore and they start working on their home apothecary, most people who are excited about the herbs get excited about the plants and knowing more about the actual plants and knowing more about their features and why they work like they work. And that has to do with all the phytochemistry and, things like that. My little teacher back over there. Let's see here. Carla says, after you dig dandelion root and plant, do you let it dry first before you chop plants and roots? You know what? No, I don't. The reason is that if you let your roots dry completely before you chop them, they're going to be so hard. They really get hard to chop. So what I do is I will harvest them, wash them and scrub them off, and then I chop them, and then I lay that out to dry. And that's how I do it. And light treatment was at a Rife machine. You know what? It was so long ago. I mean, this was like 20 years ago. I don't know. I think it was some kind of blue light is all I can remember. I just went in there like the doctor said, right? And laid down and had my face blasted with this light, and my rosacea went away. And I was like, what? And then it started to come back. But at that time I was taking herbs, and I was starting to play with skincare, and I created some things that really helped calm it down. And I never really had a bad problem with it again. And then it just went away over the years. So it's crazy. Maureen says, would you be happy to share your dosage calculator link here? I couldn't make the lives. Oh, for your herb drug comparisons. Thank you. Maureen, let's see if I can find that for you. Yes, on YouTube, I was sharing the calculator for dosing. Let me see if I can find it here for you guys. I give a lot of free gifts away, and I love to, because it helps people. So here are dosing guidelines for you guys, if you want to grab those too. Totally free. Okay. And I just put them in the comments. I don't know if they're going to show up. They probably will show up in the chat. Let's see here. Question from Kathy. Let's see. How did you treat your back issues, and what would you use for joint pain and arthritis? So I had L4, L5 disc issues, and they were, I had a bulging disc, and it was causing pressure on one of the nerves in my spine. So I had sciatica too that went with it. So the whole thing hurt. My low back was under a lot of pressure and inflamed. And then I had the sciatica going down my leg, and it was awful for a while. And finally I decided, okay, I can't take these pain meds. I'm not going to take those. And what I did was a combination of lifestyle, as well as herbs. Sorry. Grab my water again. Sorry about that. So what I ended up doing, if I can recall, I worked on my posture. I worked on my core strength. I developed my abs, and I developed my back muscles a little bit more gently, of course. And I used cayenne salve and St. John's wort. I took the St. John's wort internally. It's very supportive of the nervous system. And so when you have sciatica, you've got nerve things going on. That seemed to really help. The salve was amazing. And then I did some yoga stretches. One of the things that I did was when I was sitting on the sofa, I would actually sit like a frog and keep my back very straight and kind of splay my knees out. That stretched out my low back, and that was helpful. And so over time, those were some of the things that I did. I also started working on my stress and anxiety because I realized, like I said, I was getting into herbs at about that time. that there's a strong connection between pain and the stress response. It's cyclical. You have stress, and if you've got a painful situation, guess what happens? The pain gets worse. If you have pain, that causes stress in the mind and the body, and it just doesn't stop. And so what you need to do is figure out ways to deal with the stress response, and that can support the pain that you're or reducing the pain that you're having as well, or change it a little bit so that you can work with it differently. Okay, breathing exercises can be really, really helpful. So those are a bunch of different ideas. I did a lot of things when I'm working with clients. What I'm a fan of is layering different easy solutions that can support the body, so the body can go to work to do what it needs to do. Okay. Let's see. Question from Kevin. I'm having a hard time with my family taking all natural things. Do you have pointers or anything? It's so discouraging. I do. And this is going to sound a little crazy, but I'm going to tell you that you need to just stop pushing it. If you've tried and they're not open to it and they're making fun of you, don't talk about it. Just do it. Just do it. Be a good role model. The second thing I'm going to encourage you to do is find an herbal community, one that's active, so you don't feel like you're the odd guy out. So honestly, I have a lot of students in this situation. I'm in this situation with some of my family members. I mean, some of my family members think I'm a kook, even though they've seen with their own eyes how my health has improved, how my life has changed. They still won't, they just can't bring themselves to believe that this could be a viable option for them, because you got to do what the doctor says, right? But yes, it's put my book back up there so I don't forget. I just want to remind people, the first 10 folks that buy the Family Herbalist certification paid in full, we're going to be sending a physical book to you, to your house. So you'll have it, which is a great resource. But anyway, yes, get into a community. Find a group where you can actually be around people, talk to people, see their faces. Like we go live on Zoom in the tribe almost every single week, and in Ditch the Drugstore we have open groups a few times a year. I think in 2025, I haven't decided, but I think we're only going to open up a live group 2 to 3 times. It's going to be less. We opened quite a lot this year, and it's exhausting. But people have lots of apothecaries now, so that's really good. Let's see. Let's see. Question from Lucinda. Inspiration. What plants to plant in my new herb patch, or should you grow in between vegetables when you have a veggie patch? I do it all. I have a dedicated herb garden, and then I also plant medicinal herbs in my vegetable garden. And when I was when I was teaching elementary and middle school, I was living in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we lived in the suburbs at that time. And I used to garden in the landscape plants, and we had an HOA, and they didn't like that at some of the places that we lived. So sometimes I had to garden in containers and keep everything in the backyard. But I managed to find a way. I've always grown plants, and I think that's something that, it's good to do. And I'm no expert gardener by any means, but it's really wonderful when you can, here, I'll show you my ginger. Get your ginger going, right? It's crazy what you can do even with no experience. Question from Esther. Are there any property differences between thyme and lemon thyme? Yes, there are actually. So lemon thyme has a lemon scent because of the aromatics that are in that plant. And it's likely that what you've got is a chemotype of thyme, chemotype of geraniol. All right. And And this would be the lemon thyme variety. That chemical has different properties than just the regular Thymus vulgaris with the chemotype of thymol. Those properties are very antifungal. They're really good for the skin. They're more calming to the emotions. They can also be skin sensitizers. So lemon thyme might be a little more irritating to the skin that if it's not diluted correctly than regular thyme can be. So, but otherwise they're beautiful, both of them, to use for antimicrobials and all of the uses that we mentioned above. Question from Erica. Is German chamomile different therapeutically from Polish chamomile? Zlati Lan. And I'm going to say, I honestly don't know. I'm not familiar with that genus and species of chamomile, Erica. So I would go ahead and do a little research on that and see, what the benefits and uses. When you search Google, search benefits and uses of the Latin name, okay? You're likely to get better information. Let's see. Kay says, what do you use for your oil? And so if you're talking about an herbal oil infusion, I use a number of different things depending on what I'm going to use that oil for. So if I want to make myself a facial serum, for example, I'm likely to use oils that are really good for the skin, like jojoba oil or I love jojoba oil for the skin. Rose hip seed oil. I might, add some of that in to infuse. And then I put my herbs in there and it gathers the constituents from the herbs. And now you've got this lovely facial serum. If I'm working for stretch marks or scars or wrinkles, things like that, then I'm going to do different things. I might use more of an astringent kind of oil like grapeseed or olive oil. And I have to tell you that I'm getting a little sign here from the webinar company. I've only got 15 minutes before they're going to kick us off. So I will try to answer some more questions here. Would you explain, whoops, I missed this one. Can wild chamomile work as well as the German chamomile? If it's Matricaria recitata, yes, it will. And generally it is. Question from Andrea, if it's here in the United States anyway.
How many certifications? How many books did they give away?
10.
10, okay. You got a couple more to go.
Oh, Joe says he just came in to tell me, and I don't know who bought them. I should celebrate. But it sounds like 8 people have purchased the Family Herbalist certification, and we will be sending those books out. So we've got a couple more that we can do too. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on herbal infused honeys? I love herbal infused honeys, and that's one of the medicine making methods you'll learn in the course. But they're beautiful. They're a wonderful way to get herbs into like children or people who don't like the taste of the herbal teas. You can cook with them. In fact, my favorite cough syrup is an herbal infused honey. I love them. Let's see here. Would you explain the differences between German and Roman chamomile? Okay, so plant-wise with the herb, they're pretty interchangeable. They can be both used for sleep, for relaxation, for sedation. But I think that the German chamomile is a little bit better for digestion and for, like we talked about, colic in babies and things. Now, the essential oil is different. Roman chamomile essential oil is more indicated for emotional kinds of anxiety, stress, relaxation, and sleep. Whereas the German chamomile, this one with the blue, the blue kind, look at how blue that is. I just love it. This one is more indicated for inflammation and pain and sore muscles, things of that nature. So that's a little bit of how they're different. Let's see. How do I know that I'm getting the correct plant? So Gail, Latin name. Okay, be sure to do research. If you're going to be planting medicinal plants, be sure you get the Latin name. And if you go to a nursery, be sure that you get the right plant. Otherwise, you can go to Rico Check's company. He's a really famous herbalist, and he's got an amazing nursery in California. It's called Strictly Medicinals. It's amazing, and he will be sure that you get the right plant. Baker's Creek is another one. And then if you want to start seeds, I like Botanical Interests as well. They have really nice plants and seeds too, if you want to grow from seed. Question from Elisa. I have a grandson diagnosed with severe autism, yet he's extremely smart and playful. Would German chamomile help, like with ADHD? It could. And I would probably go with the Roman chamomile essential oil for that. And then you can just take either just regular chamomile tea would be fine too, to see if that might help him as well. I want to give you some hope on that. So we have a granddaughter who was diagnosed with autism, and very quiet, very shy, very reserved, difficulty with the eye contact and the whole ball of wax. And this was many years ago, but she was placed in a self-contained classroom. And when Joe and I are a blended family. When I met her for the first time, because I was a special ed teacher at that time, I'm like, she shouldn't be in self-contained. And they did end up finally, the dad had to fight, Joe's son. They put her in a regular classroom. And this was years and years ago. She just went off to college. So I just want to say, people who are diagnosed with autism, they're wonderful and special and incredibly hopeful. So I just want to share that with you. I've worked with a lot of kids with autism over the years, and they're all different. So you need to dial in what works for him. Okay, question from Janine. I have both the fresh and dried essential oils, not sure which to use. I have both the fresh and dried herb. I'm assuming it's the herbs. So you can use both usually. Or maybe you have everything, fresh and dried essential oils. I'm not sure which to use. The way you're going to choose between fresh and dried depends on the herb. So again, let's pull out the St. John's wort. If you've got St. John's wort, it's better to use this plant fresh for sure, if you can. Now you can still use it dried in teas, but it's not going to have the power with the tincture or the infused oil if you use it dried. Other plants like peppermint, for example, actually extract better once it's been dried a little bit because it's such a moist plant. You want the aromatics are actually stronger in it with the dried herb. So it just depends on the plant. And then, of course, the preparation method that you want to use, like if you want to make a salve, then you're probably going to be using an herbal infused oil along with essential oils. So I don't know if I answered that question the way you wanted me to, but there you go. Question from Patricia. Will the ginger have all its medicinal properties if juiced and frozen? Yes, it should. Now, some plants like garlic contain this. The most active chemical in garlic is alleine and allicin. And once you cut into the garlic clove, that starts breaking down right away. It's actually what gives it its powerful smell. And so it does degrade pretty quickly. Ginger's a little more long lasting. Question from Kristen. I'm in growing zone 7A and have ginger for the first time in my garden. I can't find when to harvest and how to store some until spring for replanting. Also, with all the rain and almost flooding conditions where we are right now, we're about 5 hours from the flood areas in North Carolina. Should I get it out of the ground now? Will it not withstand water? You know, I don't know. I've always lived in like a colder area except for Las Vegas, which is really dry. So I've never really lived in a place where you can grow ginger outside. I have to grow it in a very, like this ginger here was grown in a little greenhouse. And then for winter, I have to bring it in the house or it's just not going to make it. So where you're at, I would say that I know my rhizomes have gotten a little mushy if I overwater. So I think all the water might be a problem, but I would just keep checking on them and then kind of do what your gut says, I guess, or ask a gardener in your area would be really good too. A question from Maureen. If I miss the end of the live, will I still be able to get the booklet? Absolutely. And I think Joe is putting the link in the chat for you guys. So yes, if you can't get this, you know, I'll ask him right now. Joe, can you make sure the link to the book is in the chat and also the link to the information page for the course so people can look at that? Let's see here. But yes, you can, and you can watch the replay and get the link from that too. Okay. And will there be a recording that can be translated into other languages? I'm not sure. Jean's asking this. I don't know, honestly. If I don't know if Webinar Jam has that capability. I'm going to say probably not, though. Same question. Yes, so I answered that one. Yes, you will be able to get the book. Dixie, you mentioned scapes. Do you prefer hard neck over soft neck garlic? Do you know, because we're in such a cold area, we just grow the hard neck, but I don't have a preference. Both of the garlics are wonderful. In the warmer areas, the soft neck seems to do better in those places. Kevin, good question here. How do you determine what to make? An essential oil, tincture, oxymel, or tea? So first off, to make an essential oil, you actually need like a still to do that. And I've been dabbling with that and have yielded some really nice essential oils. But what I think you're talking about is an herbal infused oil, something like this, which is where the herb is actually in the oil. Okay. And the way you know if what you're going to use is going to depend on who you're working with, what the condition is, the size of the person, what they like, and then the condition itself. So, let me think of an example. If you're working with somebody who's, I don't know, got a burn, let's just say they burned themselves. If it's a child, then, you know, you want to definitely get the inflammation going, get it down. And then I would use a St. John's wort oil salve, to be honest, because St. John's wort is incredible when it comes to burns. If it's a first degree burn, that's definitely what I would do. And then tincture wise, you can go ahead and make an herbal tea or a tincture for the pain. That can be very, very helpful. You can make a spray, like a boo-boo spray for the pain. So there, you can actually do a number of different things. You've got lots of choices with herbalism, which is really incredible. And then, you know, if a person can't take an alcoholic tincture, then you might choose to do an oxymel or a glycerite or a tea if they like tea instead. Again, lots of choices there. Amy says, can garlic be cooked and still work? Yes, it can. It's just not going to be as powerful. You guys, they are going to kick me off in 5 minutes, and the sign says it's time to wrap it up. So I'm going to go ahead and encourage you all to please visit the information page for Ditch the Drugstore. If you are interested in herbalism, if you're interested in finally getting that home apothecary built out and ready and made for yourself, if you're interested in diving into this fascinating world, you know, I think family herbalism is the best way to start. This is also considered community herbalism because you'll be working likely with friends and neighbors and things like that too. And it's a great course. And I can't tell you how amazing it is to hear from students over and over and over who've had such wonderful results. And I'm sorry I can't get to the rest of the questions, but they are gonna kick me off here. So I love you guys, and I hope that You dive in. And if it's not with me, if you find that I'm not your style, go learn from somebody because honestly, we need more herbalists in the world, and your family needs an herbalist, especially the way things are going around here these days. So I'm going to sign off. And thank you so much for coming. It's been a blessing to be able to be here with you. And thank you to those of you who are still hanging in there at this point. And I hopefully will see you on YouTube, or maybe you'll be on my newsletter list and visit my website, but stay in the community in some way. I'd love to see you inside the course. All right. Bye-bye.